Okay, good morning to all. Let me continue the previous project. So in last session, I showed the demonstration of how to implement Spring MVC and also performed database operations using Spring JDBC template. So now I'm going to continue the same project in order to complete the remaining operations. Update, delete, and retrieve data from the database. So this is the project we done in the previous session. In this project, I just give overview, created a dynamic project, and then I converted into a Maven project. Then I added the required dependencies in form.xml. Then I created 3 controllers in the location src main Java. Controller names, 3 packages. One is klu.config, and another one klu.controller and klu.model. In the package klu.config, created 2 Java files to configure Spring MVC. The first Java file I created in the name mvc-config.java and implemented the interface web MVC configure. Then another file I created app-config.java to apply inheritance with the parent class, which help us to implement Spring MVC. That is abstract annotation config dispatcher servlet initialization. So here we configure the root URL for controller, and we provided the configuration class in the method getRootConfig classes. After doing these 2 configuration file in the package klu.config, another package I created in the name klu.controller. In that package, I am using 2 different Java files. That means 2 controllers I have. One is for handling my model and view, and another controller I created to perform the database operation using Spring JDBC template. Then in model package, there are 2 Java files I created. One is student.java for entity class, and another one student manager as an implementation class. In student.java, 3 data members are created: ID, name, and department. And also we have the constructor to initialize the data members. Getter and setters are generated for the data members, and toString method also generated. So after creating this entity class student.java, created another Java class in the name student manager for implementation. In the student manager class, object is created for JDBC template, and the JDBC template is initialized by using a constructor and created one method to perform insert operation. Save data is the method name. Inside the method, I created the exception handling by using try catch. Inside the try block, I just create a query to perform insert operation based on the user input. User inputs we can receive by using the parameter object, yes. So from that, yes, we can get the value of ID, name, and department. These 3 values are concatenated with the insert query to perform insert operation. Next, in order to perform the insert operation, I just call the method update for JDBC template and passed the string of query as a parameter. So the update method will take responsibility to perform insert operation into the database. Finally, we are returning the acknowledgement. New student has been added. If any error occurred during this process, that will be handled by the catch block. So that I return the acknowledgement, whatever error I got, that I'm returning as an acknowledgement from the method save data. Then student controller.java file I created to perform database operations and generating a API. So here I created object for the implementation class student manager, then created one service to perform save operation into the database. Since it is an insert operation, that means we are going to write a content into the database so that we can get input in the form of JSON from request body. So I show the demonstration how to send JSON data for the object student by using a Postman tool. So the input we given in the form of JSON, the request body. So that I'm using the annotation at the rate request body. So it will take input from the request body in the form of JSON that will be assigned to the object S. Then this service will call the implementation method save data from student manager class. Then save data will perform insert operation into the database. Then it returns the acknowledgement. Either it will give success or failure response. Success means we will get the acknowledgement as we defined in the class student manager, new student has been added. If it is a failure, whatever error we got, that it will return. So now I will deploy this project. So this is the output I can get because I created only one front end file, that is student.jsp. In that, nothing I did. Just I added the H3 tag to display the hello world message on the browser. So then we can test the save operation by using the Postman tool. Okay. Here I given the URL to call a particular service from student control. So I can take my URL from the browser. Once I deployed, I can able to see the message hello world in the browser. So this is the root URL that I can take and copy and paste it here. Then followed by what is the API name we given for the controller student. So in the file student controller, I given the API name as a student. So I mentioned the API name here, then followed by which service we want to call. That service name we need to provide. So save is the service name implemented in student controller.java file. And the request type is post. So we need to select the request type as post. Then click on body, select the input type as raw and the format of input as JSON. So JSON means it should be enclosed with open and closed braces. Here we can provide the input in the form of key and value pair. So there are three data members in the entity class, that is ID, name, and department. ID is declared as an integer, so that I given the value for ID without double quotes. And the name and department are declared as a var pair in database, and also in the entity class it is declared as a string. That's why I'm using the double quotes while providing value for name and department. After providing this data here, if we click on send a request to the controller, student controller, it will perform insert operation into the database. So meanwhile, I will open MySQL workbench. So just I'm connecting with my database. So this is the database name I configured in MVC config.java file. JFSD CLUSTER-2 is my database name. In that database, I created a table student with three columns. Let us see what is the data available in the table. So by executing a select query for the table student from the database JFSD C2, it will bring all the data from the table. So the table has only one record, that is ID is one, and the name of the student and the department of the student. Let us try to insert another record. ID as two, name of the student, and the department I given as ECE. If I'm sending a request, I can get an acknowledgement that is new student has been added. So let me verify the same in the database, whether it is saved in the database or not. So return back to MySQL workbench, execute a select query one more time. We can able to see the new record, which we inserted using a postman tool. Suppose if you are giving same ID again, ID is declared as the primary key. If I am using the same ID for another student, I try to submit my input, I can get an error. So this is the error because of the duplicate entry of 2. It violates the primary key policy. So this error we can receive from the save data method from catch block. So this is what we done in the previous session. Now we will try to complete the remaining operations. Save, delete, sorry, save already done, update, delete, and then retrieve data from the database. And also we try to integrate with the front end so that we will fulfill the requirement of full stack development. So let me create a new method in the implementation class, student manager. So here I'm going to perform a new operation, update operation. So how I created a method to perform save operation, in the same way I'm going to create a new method in the implementation class student manager. I just name the method as update data. For updation also I need all the detail of a student, ID, name, and department. So better I can take the object of the student class as a parameter. Then create a try catch mechanism to handle the exceptions. Inside a try block, we can start our implementation. First, we need to define the query. So create a temporary variable for the data type string. So we can create a query for update operation. The query for update operation is update table name. Student is the table name. Set. I'm going to change name of the student and department of the student based on the primary key ID. So what are the things I'm going to change? Name I'm going to change. So set name equal to, it is declared as a string and it is a varchar in the database. So its value should be enclosed with the double quotes. So here I just concatenate the value of name of the student by using the object s.getName, comma, and also I'm going to update the department equal to. So I can take my input object yes by using the method get department. And we can give the condition by using the where class, where id equal to that is from s.getID. So this is the query we need to write to perform update operation into the database. Update is a keyword, then followed by student is the database table name. What are the field we need to modify that we can set here? Name equal to the input taken from the parameter yes by using the method get name. And a department also we need to modify. I taken the value of department from the parameter object yes by using get department method. And the condition I given here as where id equal to s dot get id. So based on the id, that means based on the primary key, we need to change the value of name and department of a particular student. Next, we need to execute the operation by using JDBC template. This is the object of JDBC template. And we can call the method update and pass query as a parameter. Then we can return the acknowledgement. So this is the acknowledgement I'm going to return once the operation is success. Student details has been updated. If there is some error while performing the update operation, it will be handled by the catch flag. So I can return that error message as an acknowledgement. Return e.get message. So I just like save data, created another method for update operation. Only the changes in the query. So in save data, we return a query for perform insight operation. In update data method, I just write a query for update operation. So once the implementation is done for a particular operation, then we need to create a service in the student controller. So open the file student controller, create a new microservice here to perform update operation. So it is update operation, so that I'm using the mapping, put mapping. We can assign the service name here. So I just give the service name as update. Then create a method. The return type is string. I name the method as update. So here I can take my input as like in the previous service from request body. Student is the entity class name. Then yes is the object of student class. And then we can return the acknowledgement which is returned by the method update data. So that I try to call by using the implementation class object. Student man already the object for the class student manager. So SM is the object name for student manager class. By using the object of student manager, I can call the method update data. Just now we implemented the method update data in student manager class. So we can call the method update data and pass the parameter object yes. Then we can save. So just I'm going to deploy my project again. Then we can test the update operation using a Postman tool. So right click on the project name for deployment. Use the option run as run on server and select the Tomcat server which you have in your system. Then finish. Once project is deployed, we can see the hello world message on the browser. Then we can test using the Postman tool. So what is my request type now? It is a put because I'm going to test the update operation. What is the mapping I used in my code? Put mapping I'm using instead of post mapping. I'm using a put mapping to perform update operation so that I can change my request type as a put. Then URL. So up to this, there is no change because the update service is also available in the controller student. Then in the place of save, I can call the service which we created recently. The service name is update. So this is my complete URL to call the particular service which we created in student controller.java file. Then we can give the input, which record we want to modify. So in my database, there are two records. I want to update the name and department of the student ID 1. So my student ID is 1. So previously, name of the student is X and department of the student is CSE. Just see the database value. Name of the student is X and the department is CSC. Now I'm going to modify the name and department of the student. I can change the name of the student, and also I need to update the department of the student as mechanical. Then I'm going to send a request to this particular service. I can get an acknowledgement. Student details has been updated. It is meaning that the operation get executed successfully without any error. So while submitting a request, the controller will go to the service update from student controller. It will try to execute the method update data which is created in student manager class with your input. Then what is the logic we have in the method update data? We taken the input in the form of entity class object student. Here we have the query to perform the update operation. And we used JDBC template dot update method to execute a query. Finally, we are returning the acknowledgement student details has been updated. That's why we can able to get the acknowledgement as student details has been updated. Let us verify the same in the database whether the changes are updated in the table or not. We can use MySQL Workbench. Previously, the data which is available for the student ID 1 is name is X and department is CS. Now I'm going to execute the select query. So there is a changes occurred in the particular record on the table. Based on the ID, we are changing the name and the department. Like this, we can perform update operation using Spring MVC with JDBC template. So next we will perform delete operation. So all implementations should be in the implementation class student manager. Here I'm going to implement a new method to perform delete operation. Then create a method public string and method name. We can give any name. I just name the method as delete data. So here only primary key is enough to perform delete operation. No need to take ID, name and department of a student. So instead of collecting all the data from the controller, we just take only the primary key and we can execute the delete operation. So that I'm going to take a primary key here. So what is my primary key in the entity class student? ID is the primary key. So I can take a primary key as a parameter to the method delete data, then create a try catch to handle the exceptions. We can perform the operation inside the try block. So first we need to define the query to perform delete operation. The query for delete operation is delete from a table name. Student is the table name. Condition where ID equal to based on the input. So since ID is an integer, so no need to enclose with a single quotes. Just concatenate the parameter variable ID here. So how we concatenated the inputs from the student object by using a get method. Here we directly taken the value as a variable that we can concatenate here. So this is the query to perform a delete operation in from the database table. Then using a JDBC template, we can call the method update and pass the query as a parameter. So after performing a delete operation, we can return acknowledgement as student data has been deleted. If any error, then error will become the acknowledgement. So we can return the error message as a acknowledgement. So it's very simple to perform database operations using JDBC template. So no need to worry about the connection establishment and creating object for a statement and closing the connections. Everything will taken care by the JDBC template. So once the implementation is done for delete operation, we can create a new microservice in the student controller.java file. So I'm going to the file student controller.java. How we created a microservice to perform update operation and insert operation. Like that, I'm going to create a new microservice here at the rate delete mapping. At the rate delete mapping. And we can assign a name to call this particular microservice. So name of the service is delete. And create a method. So what is my input? Only ID. I can pass this input instead of JSON data. I can pass this input uh, as a request parameter value. So along with the URL, I'm trying to pass input to this particular parameter. So then I can return by executing a method student manager class object dot delete data and pass the parameter ID as an input. Then the delete data method will take a responsibility to perform delete operation into the database. If operation is success, it will return success response as student data has been deleted. If any failure occur, it returns the error message as an acknowledgement. So now the service is created. The thing is, we need to configure the parameter. I'm going to take input for this particular parameter from the request itself. So that I'm going to add the annotation at the rate request param. So there is the annotation request param. It helps us to take value for the parameters from the URL. So we can use the parameter request param. We can provide the parameter name. So I just given the parameter name as ID in capital letter. We can use same small letter ID also. If you given like this, we may get a conflict between the parameter name and ID. So there is no issues on this. We can use the same parameter name what we have here. If you have confident about the concept, you can proceed with the same name. Okay, then once it was done, we can save, then start redeploying your application. Then only the changes will be updated into the server. So I restarted my application. Then I can go to the Postman tool. My request type is delete now because of delete mapping I used while creating a service for delete operation. And the URL, there is a changes in the URL. I want to call the service name delete. This is the service I created recently in student-controller.java file. Then there is no input. No need to worry about the input in JSON format. Even though if you have, it won't take. So I just make it as a blank. I'm not passing any input from request body. So I can pass my input along with my URL. So we can use the simple question mark. Then the parameter name. What is the parameter name I given? Okay. In the annotation at the rate request param, I mentioned the parameter name as ID. This is the name you have to use. Okay. So then don't get confusion with the parameter name and the variable name. So what is the parameter name you given for the annotation request param? That is the name you have to provide here. ID equal to which record you want to delete from database, that ID number we can provide. So in my database table, I have two records. I want to delete the ID number 1 so that my input is ID equal to 1. which student you want to delete, you can provide the particular student ID as an input for the request parameter ID. So then click on a send button to send a request to the service. Then we can get an acknowledgement. Student data has been deleted. So how it executed, we given the value for the request parameter ID here 1. Then the control will go to the service which is named as delete with your input. That input is assigned to the parameter variable ID. So the same will be passed to the delete data. Then the delete data will get executed. It is available in student manager. Whatever ID we are passing as a parameter, that is available in the parameter variable ID. Here we define the query to perform delete operation. Delete from student where value of ID equal to the value of parameter. Then JDBC template.update to execute the query. Once the operation is success, it will come to execute the next statement. It will return the string. Student data has been deleted as an acknowledgement. Okay, if there is no error, we will get acknowledgement student data as deleted. If any error, it will be handled by the catch block. What is the error message we got that will return as acknowledgement. So let us verify the same in the database table. As of now in table, there are 2 records. If we execute a select query, the student ID 1 has been removed from the database table. Like this, we can perform insert, update, and delete. Still one operation is pending, that is retrieve data from the table. So let me complete the read operation from the database. So next I'm going to perform the read operation. So create a method for perform read operation. So while retrieving a data, the database table not having a single record, there is a chance to have many records in the particular table. Okay. So if it is a single data, single value, we can define the data type here. So actually we are going to read all the data or records from the table and return a collection of records from the table as a response. So if it is a more than one record, more than one value, better we can go with the Java collection. So I'm going to return a list of student details so that I'm using the Java collection list. So list is created for the entity class student. Then assign a name for the method. So I given the method name as read data. While performing a read operation, there is no input is required because I want to get all the records from the table and return as a list here. So I don't want to use any var condition here. If I want to return a particular student record, I can take primary key ID as a parameter. So based on the primary key, I can fetch the record from the database table. I can return it. But now I want to return all the records from the table. So no primary key is required. So directly we can start implementation. So what is the return type? It is a Java collection, list of student. So let me create object for list of student. List of student is created and it is initialized using the new array list. And what is the array list type? Student. So I just created object for list. I forget to give the object name. So student S list is the object of list. List is created for the entity class student and it is initialized by using array list of student. Then S list equal to, we can use the object JDBC template dot, there is a method called query. So update is a method used as to perform insert operation, update operation and delete operation. There is another method called query to perform data retrieval from the database table. So let me use the query. It takes first parameter as a query to perform read operation from the database. What is the query to retrieve all the data from the table? So let me define a query here. Select star from table name. This is the query we can use to retrieve all the records from the table. So you can go through the MySQL workbench. What is the query to retrieve all the data? Select star from table name student. So I define the query here to retrieve all the data from the table student. So that is the first parameter. Query will be the first parameter for the method query for JDBC template. Second parameter is object of row mapper. So the row mapper is created for the entity class student. So actually it is a single line statement where the semicolon is terminated until it will be considered as a single statement. First parameter is query, what we need to execute to perform a read operation from the table. Second parameter is the object of the template class row mapper. So row mapper is a template class. That row mapper class is created for the entity class student because we are going to perform a read operation from the table student. So already we have the entity class in the name student. It is created for student. So object is created and the function open close and open close is given. Then we can use the open brace and close brace to create a function. It is an inline function. Okay. Then you can press enter here. It will create a space like this so that we can update more features here. So then you will get an error on the statement new row mapper of student. Then move cursor on the error. You will get an option for add unimplemented method. So let me repeat again. So what I'm doing here, just created a query. Then I'm using the object of list equal to use the object JDBC template and call the method query. This method needs two parameter. First parameter is the query which we want to execute. Second one, we need to uh, return a row mapper object. So that I'm using a new, what is the entity class name? The interface name row mapper. The row mapper is created for the entity class student. Then you can create a method, inline method like this. So it should be terminated with the semicolon. Then create a space. Now you can able to get error on row mapper. Just move cursor on the error, then click on the option add unimplemented methods. So one method will be implemented, added automatically here. So then we can start updating some logic here. So each this will run continuously based on number of record present in the table. So this map row method have a object of result set and it will take a number of row present in the table. So this will be repeated for based on number of record present in the table. So each and every time it will retrieve one particular record from the table. So that record means it has three value. What are the three value? What is the database having three columns, ID, name, and department. So each and every iteration, it will read one particular student detail. One student detail in the sense it have three details, ID, name, and department. So now I'm going to create a temporary object for the entity class student. So this entity class having a constructor. So and I'm initializing the entity class student. Student having a constructor with the three values. What are the three values? First one is ID, second one is name, and the third one is department. In entity class student, we have a This constructor takes three parameters, ID, name, and department, and initialize the data members of the class, ID, name, and department. So I'm using the constructor here so that I'm going to pass value to ID and name and the department. First, I'm going to pass value to the ID. So I'm using the result set object. The object of the result set is RS. RS dot, there is a method get int. Because the first column is ID, it is declared as an integer in the database table. So that we can get value from the column number 1 by using getInt method. GetInt column number 1. Index of the column we need to pass. Then second one, rs dot, we can use the method getString. The reason is name is declared as a varchar in the database. So that we can use the method getString and pass the column number 2. And the third one, rs dot, use getString because department is also declared as a varchar in the database. GetString from column number 3. So object is created for student. The temporary object is created for student and initialized with the value of ID, name, and department. ID we can taken from the database from column number 1. Name is taken from column number 2 and department is taken from column number 3. So then we need to return this object. So we can replace return null with the object of the student. So what is the object of the student? Temp is the object of the student. So how this function will work? It will repeat based on number of record present in the table. So each and every iteration, it can able to read one particular record from this table. In first iteration, it will read the first record from the table. One record means it have three values, ID, name, and department. In the same order, it will be saved in the result set. The result set having a three data, ID, name, and department. So in each and every iteration, what I'm doing, I just create object for the class student and initialized by using the constructor. Constructor we have in the entity class student, parameterized constructor. That constructor needs three parameters to initialize the data members ID, name, and department. So I'm passing value for ID from the result set by using the getInt method. Why? What is the reason I'm using getInt here? In database table, ID is declared as an integer. So that I'm using getInt to read data from column number 1. And column number 2 and 3 in database, it will be declared as a varchar so that we can use rs.getString and get value from column number 2. In same way, we can get value from column number 3 for department. Finally, we can return the object. So each and every iteration, we are returning one student object that will be added into the list. Yes, list is the object of Java collection, list of student we created. So it will be added in the list automatically. Then finally, we can return the object of list. Finally, we can return the object of list because the return type we mentioned as a list of student. So we created object for list of student and we performed the read operation from the database. All the data will be saved in the object S list. Finally, we are returning the object of the student as a result. So once the read operation is implemented in the student manager.java file, then we need to create a new service in student controller.java. So then go to student controller.java, create a new service here. So it is a read operation so that I'm using the mapping, get mapping. So we can define the service name. I define the service name as read, then public string, method name, no need to pass any parameter, then return by using the object of student manager. We can call the method read data. So we just return like this. But what is the return type of read data? The read data method will return list of student. Okay. So we get error on the return statement because it's not returning a string. We given the return type string here while creating a service, but the method read data will return a object of list. It's not a string. So we need to convert it into a string manually by using dot toString method. So wherever you are using the dot toString method, the student object, value of the student object will get executes the toString which we override here. It returns a string, name of the class within a square bracket, which will list out all the data members, ID, name, and department. So let us see how it returns the value in Postman tool. Then we can start integrating uh, all these operations by using the front end student.jsp file. So once this was done, then I'm going to redeploy my application. So application is started. Then I'm using a Postman tool. What is my request type now? It is get, because the service is created with the mapping, get mapping. So then what are the changes in the URL? So up to this common, up to the URL http colon localhost 8080 followed by the project name and the API for student controller is common. Then what is the service name I given? Read is the service name I given in the student controller.java file. If you want, you can go through student controller.java. This is the service name I given to perform a read operation. So I make a necessary changes in the URL to call the particular service to perform read operation from the database. Then click on send and we will wait for the acknowledgement. So this is the response received from the service read. So what it returns? It returns the data retrieved from the table. In my database table, as of now, we have only one record. Okay, ID is 2, name of the student is Y, department is ECU. So that's why we can able to get one student object from the database. So because of that dot toString method, it will invoke the toString method from the entity class. Here I'm using dot toString. I'm converting all the object of list into a string. So at the time, what will happen? It will invoke the method which we have in the object student, toString method. What this toString method will return? It will return a string. What is that string? It will, the string in the form of class name, then within a square bracket, it will list out all the data members with its value. That's why we can able to get a same format here. Class name is student, and there are three data member, ID, name, and department. The value for ID and value of name department is retrieved from the database. So like this, we can perform a read operation from the database. Let me insert 2 or 3 records in my database so that we can understand how it will return all the data. So directly I'm going to insert name of the student and department of the student. So directly we can insert some records for testing purpose. Once we provided the input here, then click on apply. It will generate a query based on the input. Then apply to execute a script, then finish. And execute a select query to double check whether the data is saved permanently into the table. If you execute a select query, it will list out all the data available in the database. So there are 3 details from 1, 2, and 3 with their name and department. So now we can test the read operation. Again, just click on the send button to send my request to the service read. So now I can get a response with the 3 student object. This is student object 1 and student object 2 and student object 3. So first object with the value ID 1, name of the student and department is CSE. Second object returned with the ID number 2 and the name of the student and department. Third is returned with ID number 3. So what is the data we have in the table? That will be in the form of objects here, entity class objects here. So we successfully implemented all the 4 database operations using Spring MVC with JDBC template. Okay, and now we try to integrate the same in the front end. Then only the full stack requirement will fulfill. So you can open the file student.jsp, which we created already in the web app directory. So we can go to the location src main web app and open the file student.jsp. Here I'm going to complete my design. I just change the title as student details. Then I'm going to design my front end in order to get three details from the user: student ID, name, and department. These are the inputs we need to get it from the user using the front end. So that I'm going to design my front end. So I'm just creating a div element. It is like a panel or group. Inside we can place a number of controls. So div element I created, I given the style, inline style I'm using, and given the width 100%. That means it will occupy the complete width of your browser. So then inside I'm going to create a table just for alignment. So I just create a table. The table also I given the style width 100%. It will occupy 100% of your browser. Then I'm going to create a table row. TR is the tag to create a table row with the two columns. TD is the tag help us to create a column for the table. Okay. So just I'm going to allocate a space for first column. So here I given PX. PX stands for pixel. So I'm going to allocate a space for first column from left margin to 100 pixels. So in that first column, I'm going to use to just place a label. So what is the first one? Student ID. This is the label I want to display it in my front end. That's why I created one column and allocated a space 100 pixel to display the label student ID. The second column I'm going to use to place input control. So we can use the tag input. Input type is text and assign ID T1. So text box 1. Like this, we can create a three table row to get student ID, student name, and department. So let me copy the table row and paste it 2 times. This is the row I'm going to get student name, so that I change the caption label as name. Then I'm changing the ID of the second input control as T2. So ID should be unique for each and every control. Okay, we cannot duplicate the ID. Then the third one is this is T3. So I created three input controls, T1, T2, T3. I'm using T1 for get input student ID from user. T2 can be created to get student name from user. And T3 is created for getting a department from the user. So then we need to place a button control to perform some operation. So that I'm creating a new table row to place a button control. So inside, as like I'm creating a two columns for the table. So first column, usually we will use to place a label, to write caption for a particular control. So here I'm leaving empty as a first column. I don't want to place any label here. In second column, I'm using to place a button control. So we can add a tag button, write caption on the button as save. So this is the button I'm going to use to perform insert operation. So here we can add the event listener for on click. So add the attribute on click, and we can call a particular JavaScript method to execute some operation. So I just name the method as save. Okay. So then I'm going to create a JavaScript method in the name save to call the particular service from student controller.java file and perform some database operations. So this is the button I'm using to perform insert operation. Like that, I can create another button to perform read operation. I'm changing the caption on the button as read. Then another button to perform update operation. Change the caption of the button as update. And place another button to perform delete operation. Delete. So why I'm changing the function name here, instead of delete, I'm using del. Delete is a keyword in JavaScript. So we cannot use the keyword as a function name. So that I want to show the difference, I just given the method name as del. Del. So how many functions need to be created? One is for save, one is for read, one is for update, and one is for delete. There are 4 JavaScript functions are required to call the microservice which we created in student controller.java file. So then this is the right place to write a JavaScript code in between close tag for body and HTML. We can write it in header section, and also we can write next to the HTML, but the recommended place is in between close tag of body and HTML. Here I'm going to create a tag script. Script tag is added. In between, we can write a JavaScript. So let me try to complete the first operation, that is save operation. So create a function. What is the function name? I mentioned in the button control. When user clicks on the button, it will try to execute the logic which is given in the method save. So my function name is save. Let us check whether it is working or not, so that I'm placing a alert for testing purpose. So then start deployment. So now you can able to see your output like this. So because of H3 student details I given in the tag H3, we can see the header student details here. Then I created a table with 4 columns. This is 4 rows. This is row number 1, row number 2, row number 3, and this is row number 4. In each row, I created 2 columns. First column, I allocated a space 100 px. That's why from left margin, it allocates 100 px for column 1. The remaining space allocated to column 2. Okay. First column I'm using to place the label, student ID, student name, and department. In 4th row, I didn't give anything in the first column. That's why the value in the column number 1 is empty. In second column, in first row, I placed the input text and assign ID as T1, so that we can able to see an input text box here to provide student ID. And the second row, another input text box we placed with the student with the ID as T2. And the third row having an input text box with the ID T3. In 4th row, I created 4 buttons, one for save, read, update, and delete. I just implemented only one JavaScript function, that too for button, which we created to perform save operation. So what is the function name I mentioned for on-click event for the button control? Save. So in JavaScript, I wrote only one method to perform save operation. If user click on the particular button, then it will trigger the function save. So what is the logic we have in the save? Only one statement, that is alert. Alert dialog will display with the message testing. So we can check. If I click on delete, nothing was happen. Update, nothing was happen. Read, update was happen. But if I click on save, I can get a alert dialog with a message what I given in the alert statement. It is T. So it is meaning that the button on click is successfully executed. Then we can start writing a logic to send a request to the service save, which we created in student controller.java file with all these inputs, student ID, name, and department. So return back to the code, create one iterative function to call the particular service from student controller.java. So just I'm going to create, because no need to repeat the statements again and again. So create one function called API. This is the function I'm going to use, call my services, API services. So function, name of the function called API with 4 parameters, method, URL, data, and then response handler. So I just create a method with 4 parameters, because while sending a request, what are the things we are doing? We need to set a request method, whether it is a get method, post method, put method, or delete method. So that details we need to pass while sending a request. That's why first parameter I created as a method. Second one, URL. So we need to provide the URL to call a particular service. So that I'm taking second parameter, URL as a second parameter. Third, if you want to perform post operation or put operation, we must pass input in the form of JSON. So data need to be passed. That's why I given the third parameter as data. And fourth parameter, if you send any request to the service, you will get a response. So we must handle the response. That's why I given fourth parameter, response handler. So this function is created with the 4 parameters. What type of request it is, and what is the URL to call a particular service, and what is the input we are passing, and fourth parameter use it to handle the response. So inside the method, we can create a object for options. Here you can write a constant. What is your first parameter? Method is the first parameter. If the value of method equal to get, or value of method equal to delete. Okay, so here we can select get or delete. If get or delete, there is no input in the form of JSON. Okay, while performing read operation, I'm not passing any JSON data. While performing delete operation also, I'm not passing any JSON data. So there is no input for get and delete. But in case of post and put, we should pass a JSON data from request body, so that I'm evaluating the condition. If the request method is either get or delete, either get or delete, then what is my option to call the particular service? The option should be in the form of JSON, so it should be enclosed with open and close brace. The first key is method. We need to assign value to the key method from the parameter. So there is a difference. This is my parameter name, and this is the key name. Method attribute name. Method, I'm assigning the value of method. Second, headers. So headers also a JSON collection. That's why I'm using open and close brace. So my header type is, I'm passing the data in the form of JSON. So content type is application JSON. So here we are setting the input type raw and setting the JSON format. Okay, that's what we are doing here. So what is our header? Header in the form of JSON data. Else, if it is a post or put, then what is the option we need to provide? The same what we given for get and delete. In addition to that, we need to pass one more attribute. Okay, that is one more attribute is body. That is for input. When we are passing input while performing post and put operation. Input in the form of JSON, where we are passing the input in the body section. That's why we need to add one more attribute while performing post or put operations. Okay, so body I added, and content it is from the third parameter data. So once the option is defined, then we can call the method pitch. Pitch is a method available in JavaScript. We can call the method pitch and call a particular service. So where the service is available, it is available in the URL. So I'm passing the second parameter URL to call a particular service with the following, with the above mentioned options. So what is the options defined based on the request type? Get and delete, no need to include the attribute body. But it is a post and put, we must pass input. So that the option is defined here. Then I'm passing that option as a second parameter to fetch method. So then the fetch method will call a particular service from student controller.java. Then it returns a response. How it will return a response? By using it, then we can write. So this is the syntax for using a fetch method in Java. So it takes a two parameter API to call a particular service, and based on the request type, we can define the options. So if there is any error while trying to execute to call a particular microservice from student controller.java, that will be handled by the catch block. So whatever error we received, that we can display it using a alert dialog. Alert. If you got a successful response, you will get a response. That is your data. So if you receive any data from your response, that will be passed to the fourth parameter. What is the fourth parameter here? Response handler of data. So here we need to validate the response. So how we can validate? If not response dot okay, then it got a error. So throw new error, new error, you can pass your error message. And concatenate a string. So whatever error we received, that we can return to the catch block. So throw new error, it will go to the catch block. So along with the error message, what is the error message we got? The status code and the message what we got, that we can pass to the catch block, that will be displayed using the alert dialog. If there is no error, then return the response. Then return the response. Response means your acknowledgement. We are returning the acknowledgement if we completed successfully insert operation. We are returning the acknowledgement as new student has been added. If we completed update operation, we are returning that student details has been updated. If we performed delete operation, we are returning the acknowledgement as student details has been deleted. If we performing a read operation, we are returning the acknowledgement as a collection of student objects. So whatever it is that we can return as a response by using a text method. Okay, so this is the utility function required to send request to the particular service which we implemented in our project. Okay, so this is what the Postman tool will do. Postman tool is developed by some developed to send a request and get a response. So inside, this is the operation they are executing. So based on our input, what type of method it is, and they will define the attributes for the option, and they will use the fetch function to send a request and get a response. So now we will focus on to perform save operation here. So I'm replacing the alert method with my inputs. So what is my input? All my inputs are available in the input text control T1, T2, T3. Three controls I'm using to get student ID, student name, and department. So, and the ID assigned for first input control is T1, this is T2, and this is T3. So now I'm going to process my input. So I'm going to process my input data. So how I can process? I can create an object data. So all my inputs should be in the form of JSON so that I can use the function JSON dot string IFY. This is the function help us to convert the string in the form of JSON. So that is actually it is a single line. JSON dot string IFY is the function name. This needs a parameter. The parameter means the JSON already we know that it should be enclosed with open and close brace. How we pass the input while performing insert operation using Postman tool, it should be enclosed with open and close brace. In between, I can list out all the key and value, ID and its value, name and its value, and then department and its value. So here I can create a space. Actually, it is a single line, but I'm creating a space in between the open and close brace so that we can add many features here. So what is my first key? We can refer the entity class student. What are the data members we have? ID, name, and department. So the data member will become a key. So my first value is ID. So I'm going to set value for the ID. So where I can get value from ID, in my front end, I can get value of student ID from the first text box. What is the ID I given for this first text box? It is T1. So that I can take value from T1 for student ID. Second, I'm going to set value for name. So name, it can be taken from the another input text control, T2 dot value. And the third one, department. So value can taken from the another input text control, T3 dot value. So this ID, name, and department must be matched with your entity class data member, ID, name, and department. We should not have a spelling mistake. That's why cross-check with your student class data members, ID, name, and department. You can provide the same to prepare a JSON data. So value for ID taken from first input text, T1 dot value, name from second input text, T2 dot value, and department from third input text, T3 dot value. So once the input is ready, then we can define the URL. So what is my URL to perform save operation? So we can take the URL from the Postman tool. Already we use the URL. So this is the actual URL. So I can take which service I want to call. I want to call a service name save. So this is the function I created especially for to perform save operation into the database. So this is the URL I want to call to perform insert operation into the database. So the same URL I used in Postman tool to perform insert operation. Okay, this is the URL I used to perform insert operation into the database. This is how I pass the inputs. So first I prepared my input. The next I'm configuring the URL. So URL is defined and input is ready, URL is ready. Then I can call this utility function, call API with all the parameters. What is my first parameter? Method. What type of method I'm using? to perform insert operation, that is post. You can refer the postman tool. To perform insert operation, I'm using the method name as post. So my method name is post in capital letters. Second parameter is URL. So already we defined the URL. We can pass it as a second parameter. And the third parameter is data. So already we prepared the data. So what is the object name? Data here. That you can pass as a third parameter. And the fourth one, response handler. If you send a request and it will process your request and it will return a response. That should be handled. Okay. So we can handle a response here. Get response. And end with semicolon. So the method we given as a string, URL we defined that we can pass, data we defined here that we can pass as a third parameter, but get response not yet defined. So what we need to do, we need to write a separate function to handle the response. So this is the function I'm creating to handle my response. What is the parameter name I given? In that same name, we need to create a function. This is the function created for handle the response. So with a parameter response, this is the syntax to create a function to handle the response. So then we can create an object data. So all your response will return something, either a string or a collection of Java objects. Because we defined 4 methods in student controller.java. In student controller.java, we are returning a string. Here also we are returning a string. Here also we are returning a string. Here also we are returning a string. This method will return a string. Update or data also will return a string acknowledgement. Delete data also return a string acknowledgement. But read data will return, instead of string, it will return a Java collection. Okay. So all the service must return a response with some data. So we need to define a data here and convert the data into a JSON. How we prepare the input, converting our input in the form of JSON, like that whatever response we received, that we need to convert into a JSON. So you can use the method JSON.parse. You can convert your response as a JSON. So here I'm using the response is the parameter that converted into JSON that is available in data now. So once the response is converted into JSON, we can display the response. First, I'm using the alert to display the data. What is the response I got that I want to display it using the alert type. So let me show how to send and how to get response and how these two functions will work. So now I'm going to deploy my project. So project is deployed. Now I'm going to pass student ID. Before that, I can verify my database. What are the details I have? There are 3 students details are already found in the database. Now I'm going to insert 4th student and name of the student and the department of the student. Then I click on save. I will get a response from my JavaScript. So let me check. There is small issues. So here I forgot to define the object for the controls. T1 equal to document dot get element by ID. So there are three input text we have T1, T2, T3. ID for the controls are T1, T2, T3. So we need to create object for all this. This is for T2 and this is for T3. So now the object is created T1, T2, T3 and mapped with the front-end controls T1, T2 and T3. Then we can take value from T1, value from T2 and value from T3. So now we will check. So, okay. So it's not responding. Let us wait. Okay, now it is working. Name T2 dot value T3 dot value. So just I try to display the content of data. Sometimes because of cookies issue, it won't work. If you clear your cookies of your browser, then you can test. So ID is 4 and the name of the student and the department of the student. If I click on save, it will display the JSON data because I just print the data, ID, name, and department. So if we implement the logic, it will work. So I'm replacing this. Same functions. I didn't modify anything. So now it will work. There is some problem with call API method. So that I replace the call API method. This is the actual code. Uh, use it in call API method. The same first parameter method, second parameter URL, and third parameter input data, and the fourth one is handle the response. Okay. So now we can pass URL here where URL equal to. We can use the URL which we used in Postman tool. So URL I given. Next I can call the method call API. So call API with four values. First one is post request. Second one is my URL. And the third one is data. And the fourth one, the method name for handling the response. So then we can save and stop execution. redeploy our project. So once clear the cookies so that the JavaScript is updated properly into the browser, then refresh, then try with inserting a data. Then click on save. We will get a response. So what is the response we received? It is not a valid JSON, but the data will be inserted into the database table. If you refresh the table, you can able to see your input. This is the input I passed from my front end. Student ID 4, name of the student and department is CSE. This is the input I given. Student ID 4, name of the student and department is CSE. I can get a acknowledgement, but acknowledgement says new student is not a valid JSON. Okay. So it is a string. It's not a JSON data. That's why it gives that error. If you just print, you no need to convert into JSON. We just print as it is. You will get acknowledgement properly. So no need to convert into JSON, just print as it is. So now we will provide input student ID and the name of the student and the department is EEE. Click on save. We will get a response. New student has been added. So let me stop here. As of now, we done only insert operation, data collected from the front end and passed to the student controller.java file. The remaining operations we will continue in the next sessions. Thank you.